back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and believe it or not, I'm going to be talking about spoilers in this video. It is from the new set that's coming out in April, like late April, I believe. March of the Machine, which is not to be confused with March of the Machines. And they dropped some cards on us already, of course, completely unexpected. We just got Phyrexial Will Be One released like last week, so I don't know why they do this stuff sort of right on top of each other like this. I believe these are the precons or like the commander decks that they've spoiled already. So, you know, getting a little ahead of themselves, I think. There's a lot to talk about here, though. I don't typically like doing these super early spoilers, but there's a lot of really important things to talk about here. My patrons were really going off in the comments section. We have a channel on there talking about spoilers, and there was a lot of discussion about some of the things that are going on here. Not a lot of people were positive about it. There was a lot of negativity. You guys can let me know what you think of these new cards. There's some really interesting things going on here. So let's take a look at one of the cards. One of the really interesting things they did here that people might not like a lot, or maybe they will, is they've combined legendary creatures, right? These characters that we're all familiar with, they have combined. So this one, Thalia and the Gitrog monster, now combined on a card. What's the flavor here? Like, what's the lore? I don't know. I'm sure they're going to have an explanation for why Thalia is riding the Gitrog monster. You know, there's a bunch of these. What is the actual explanation here? I don't know. I'm not going to get into all of that. The whole lore thing, I'm not a super expert on, and what the reason is for this happening. You know, I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just going to talk about these strictly as commanders like I typically do, right? So, you know, when I think of Thalia, I think of human tribal. I think of stacks, sort of, right? Like the most famous Thalia is the one that makes non-creature spells cost one more. The Gitrog, obviously, I'm thinking of lands, a lands theme. And we've combined the colors here because Thalia is obviously white and the Gitrog is black and green. So we have an Abzan commander here. One white, black, and a green. Human frog horror, of course, because we have to combine the creature types as well. It's a 4/4 first strike and death touch. So obviously the death touch coming from the Gitrog, the first strike coming from Thalia. Fantastic combination of abilities. First strike and death touch. I just talked about this with the new Ghalta. Fantastic combination of abilities there. What else is it doing though? You may play an additional land on each of your turns. That's really good. A lot of ways you can go with that. Obviously, that's the Gitrog part of the whole thing. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. That would be the Thalia part of things. That is from the other Thalia, right? The still pretty popular Thalia, but the less popular one. Whenever Thalia and the Gitrog monster attack, sacrifice a creature or land, then draw a card. Oh boy. So, you know, I recently talked about in the color combinations video that we need new great Abzan commanders because there's not a lot of great ones. This certainly is one. Man, there's a lot going on here. So we have a lot of abilities here. When I'm looking at this, my first evaluation is we have a commander with first strike and death touch. That's always great, right? At the very least, you have a fantastic blocker. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. That's always great. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponent's control entering the battlefield tap. That's always great. That's going to work for you in every game, right? I guess the build around part here likely is going to be whenever your commander attacks, sacrifice a creature or land, then draw a card. That's the part you probably are going to want to build around here. And again, incredibly open-ended. Sacrificing a creature or a land, again, you can not build around this at all if you want to. This can just be, I need to draw a card, just sacrifice something I don't need. Obviously, if you have an effect that lets you play lands from graveyards, for which there is quite a few now, it used to be a rare thing. Now we have a lot of options there, even in white, right? Again, you got white here. So this is a Gitrog. You could just make a Gitrog deck in white with regards to this. And there is actually a fair amount of things that will let you play lands from your graveyard in white as well. So there's a ton of options there in Abzan colors. The sacrifice theme works great in these colors as well. This is a very open-ended commander that you could do a ton with. And I would imagine it's going to be a very popular one in the format for that reason. You know, the combination of these two really popular, powerful legendary creatures, that alone I think is going to help with the popularity, but there's just a ton going on in this card and there's a lot of different ways you can build around it. It's going to be a popular one for sure. Moving on, again with the combination sort of scenario, we have Ghalta and Mavren. And this is an interesting one because now we have, I would say, a lot less popular characters, right? Ghalta being I believe that's just the 1212 big green dinosaur, right? And then you have Mavren, which is Mavren Fane, right? Which is the white guy. I did that on my Underwhelming Commander series. That's the mono white vampire that is very underwhelming because it's tough to build a mono white vampires theme. They've combined the two, right? Now you have Mavren Fane riding a dinosaur. Again, it's just very weird. What's the explanation for this? I'm sure they have an explanation for it. So Ghalta and Mavren is a 3 green, green, white, white. So 7 mana. That's a lot. It's a 12/12, so of course it's going to be a lot, and it's got trample. So it's a big, scary creature before you get to anything else. Dinosaur vampire, of course. What else is it doing? Whenever you attack, choose one. Create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures. Other attacking creatures. Okay, and I imagine the other ability is going to be creating vampires, right? Because that's what Mavren Fane does. So create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Very interesting. So you're in the, I guess you would probably build this deck in 2 different ways. You would either go, I want to put big creatures. Man, like, this is a weird, like, other than the creating tokens theme, that's the only thing that really works here with both of these abilities. Other than that, you're in completely different scenarios here with these abilities, because you either want to do, I'm putting big creatures in my deck and I'm doing dinosaur tribal and completely ignoring the other ability, or I'm doing a go wide strategy and more vampire tribal. Now, I would say that the green white colors definitely leans toward dinosaur tribal way more. There's way more support in green and white for dinosaurs than there is for vampires. I don't like, there's a few white vampires. Again, you can check out the Mavren Fane deck I made. There's not a lot of help there. There's way more help in the token creation strategy in green and white colors than there is in vampire tribal. There's a couple, not a lot. So, I would imagine it is likely that you are going to probably just do the first ability. I mean, it's interesting that you can do the second one, but if you're building your deck, probably going to build your deck around the first one, right? I don't love this commander all around. I'll just say, first of all, I don't love this commander all around for 2 reasons. One, I mean, it's interesting, it's goofy. You got this vampire riding a dinosaur. That's kind of funny, I guess. First of all, you have a 7 mana commander, and I say all the time, if I have a commander that costs that much mana, I want to make sure it is a commander that's going to come down and do a whole lot of stuff right away as soon as I play it. I guess you could give it haste so it can attack right away, but the payoff is not super great here, I don't think. So I'm waiting until I can cast my commander, and then even if I can manage to attack with it immediately, I just get some tokens. I think there's probably better ways to do that. And the 2 abilities don't really, like, how often are you going to want to, I attack with my commander and choose the first ability, and then the next turn I attack with my commander and use the second ability? I don't think that's going to happen a lot. I think you're probably almost always going to be building your deck around one or the other. And also, I don't think people are going to be doing a whole lot of Vampire Tribal and Selesnya. That doesn't seem, I guess you don't have to do the vampire thing. You can just do a go wide strategy here. I guess if you just did a go wide strategy in general, this would probably be a decent commander for that last ability, right? Creating those, if you just forget about the vampire thing entirely, just creating, an X amount of tokens equal to the number of other attacking creatures. That's not bad. A little boring. We're just creating tokens here. Just a go wide strategy. I think this commander would probably go more in the 99 decks. Probably fits in a lot of 99 decks. All right, next up we have Drana and Linvala. So again, Drana is vampire. We got a vampire and an angel here, and Drana, I think, is mostly vampire tribal. Like, there's been a few iterations of Drana. There's been a few iterations of Linvala as well. The most notable one is the one that shuts down your opponent's creatures' activated abilities. That's the one that first comes to mind. We have the white-blue version as well, though, that is protecting your stuff. So how much of that's going to play in here? We have a white-black commander. So 1 white, white, and a black vampire angel, of course. 3/4 flying vigilance. Right away, you could do, again, just not even looking at the other abilities, you could just do any angel tribal would work. There's lots of great white and black angel tribal here. You could do vampire tribal as well because there's lots of great vampire stuff in those colors. What are we doing here? Activated abilities of creatures your opponent's control can't be activated. So they just stole that ability and stapled it on here, eh? I don't know how I feel about this. This feels a little bit lazy. Like a lot of these are just like the Thalia and the gitrog one as well. They're just taking the abilities of those creatures and just combining them. That feels a little lazy to me. Drana and Linvala has all activated abilities of all creatures your opponents control. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate those abilities. Boy, that's a weird one. This is So you're shutting down the activated. Again, this feels like a praetor, right? This is what praetors do. This could easily be a praetor, where it's shutting down your opponents and then giving you a benefit. This is a really weird combination, though, because you're shutting down the activated abilities of creatures your opponents control, and then you get them. So all that's going to happen here is your opponents are just not going to play their creatures that have activated abilities, right? They can't use them anyway, so why would they play them? And if they don't play them, then your commander does nothing, right? It has all activated abilities of creatures your opponents control. Yeah, like how do you build around that? You can't, right? Just like the original linvala, you can't really build around it. It just hoses your opponents, right? Those abilities actually, it's almost a non-bow because all you're going to do if your opponents have, or if you have this in the command zone, your opponents are going to go, okay, well, I'm not playing my Arcanus the Omnipotent because I'm not going to be able to use it anyway. And then my opponent's just going to be able to use it as soon as they cast their commander, right? So that doesn't seem to mesh very well to me at all. I don't like that. And the build, what's the build around here? Again, I don't think there is any build around. Both of those abilities, shutting down your opponents, I mean, it's always good. It's always good to be able to shut down the activated abilities of your opponents. And again, just like the original Linvala, that shuts down mana dorks as well, which you don't typically see. I guess the build around you could do here is like, I don't know if you can do this in Orzhov colors. Like, for example, if you turned the combo with Linvala is I turn my opponent's lands into creatures and then they can't activate their lands. But how do you do that in, I guess you could, I mean, we're jumping through some hoops here, but I put an Urborg in my deck, right? You put the Urborg in your deck, turns every lands into swamps, and then you play your Korma spell, which turns all swamps into creatures. There's the combo. There's the combo that you can use in this deck to shut down all your opponent's lands. Are people going to be doing that? That sounds super unfun. Don't love the design here. I don't really love it. I don't see a lot of fun, interesting ways to build this commander other than maybe just Vampire or Angel Tribal, right? Anyway, moving on. All right, and we got a new Omnath. Everybody knew it was coming, right? We got the monocolored one, right? The mono green one, and then we got the two-color one, which was the Gruul version, right? So we added red. Then we got the three-color version, which was the Locus of Royal, right? The Temur version. So we added blue on there. Then we got the four-color version, adding white, which is, and they're all pretty popular. The more colors you add, if you look at them, the decks on EDH Rec, it's like the more colors you add, the more popular they get. And now we have the five-color version, and I think the trend will continue where this five-color, I haven't even looked at what it does, but we now have a five-color Omnath. I imagine this is going to be, without even looking at what it does, it's going to be a really popular commander in the format. And it looks like Omnath has been Phyrexianized, right? Because the black mana that we have added here is Phyrexian mana. So we got the white, blue, red, and green, and the black mana is a Phyrexian mana. So you can cast this without paying the black at all. But nevertheless, in the commander format, all that really matters is the color identity, and this is a five-color commander. So, Phyrexian Elemental. So, of course, it's an Elemental, but now we've added the Phyrexian part. 4/4. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes black instead. So, this is the original Omnath, the mono-green Omnath ability of not losing unspent mana, but here, it becomes black instead. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card if it has 3 or more colored mana symbols in its mana cost. You may reveal it if it has. So you're looking at it, and if it has 3 or more colored mana symbols and its mana cost, you can reveal it. If you do, add 3 mana of any combination of its colors and put it into your hand. If you don't reveal it, put it into your hand. Oh boy. Okay, so this is an ability that's going to trigger on your pre-combat main phase, and obviously it's doing it at that time because you're adding mana. Although you're not losing your mana, so probably would have been really easy for them to just say at the beginning of upkeep. I don't know. Anyway, so at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you're looking at the top card of your library, so any top deck manipulation is going to be really handy here. If the card has 3 or more, right? So it has 3, 4, or 5 colored mana symbols in its mana cost. So hybrid mana is going to be really, really good here, right? Because hybrid mana is going to count towards 2 of those. So this is not going to be really difficult to do. If it does, you can reveal it. So let's go to the scenario of I just reveal a Beast Within, right? I reveal a Beast Within that doesn't have those colored mana symbols, okay? So if I'm not going to reveal it, I'm just going to put it into my hand. So this is just I draw a card every turn. That's already pretty good, right? I can just look at the top card, and I don't have to reveal it either, right? You may reveal the card. So if you want to, again, this just becomes a good stuff 5-color commander, again, unfortunately, because all this, and you could use this commander for any deck, because all this becomes is you don't lose unspent mana, which is always good. That's good in every commander deck, right? And I draw an extra card every turn. That's it. You cannot build around anything else, and this just becomes I don't lose my unspent mana, and I get to draw an extra card every turn. So this very easily, and my commander essentially costs 4 mana. So this essentially becomes a good stuff 5-color commander with just that, which is unfortunate, I think. But so for that reason, I would imagine it's going to be a popular commander. This ability is actually not nearly as good. I was expecting more here. So now if I'm actually building around this commander, obviously I want a lot of mana symbols in there. I want to play a lot of multicolored cards. So I guess you would make multicolored tribal here a little bit. That would probably be a good theme to go with this. Interestingly enough, the first ability is obviously harkening back to the original Omnath. This other one isn't at all. This has not really anything to do. I'm trying to think of what the other Omnaths are doing. The other Omnaths are very much landfall tribal, and this one has nothing to do with any of that. There's no landfall anything here, so that seems like a little bit of a miss to me. Flavor-wise, it does, but just looking at this ability, I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, I want lots of mana symbols and that stuff, which can be a downside because now, of course, more mana symbols means it's going to be harder to cast stuff. So mana fixing is going to be important here. But at the same time, maybe not, because you're adding that mana. So it's sort of fixing that downside, on its own. You reveal the card. If it has the required mana symbols in its mana cost, you add 3 mana of any combination of its colors. So I guess you're never going to have a problem casting these things. That's kind of funny. And this is another issue I had. If you look back at Golos, one of the issues I had about Golos is Golos could be the commander of any deck. You could have a mono black deck that is doing something that isn't related to your commander at all. And Golos, it doesn't matter if you're playing a 5-color deck. He's a colorless commander, right? So I can play Golos as my commander, and because I can cast him for no colored mana, he just goes and gets my Cabal Coffers or something. That's one of the issues I didn't like about Golos. Now here you actually have to pay the mana. You don't have to pay the black, but you do have to pay the white, blue, red, and green. So essentially you have no problem ever casting anything, right? Because you're adding the mana, you are giving the mana you need in order to cast a spell. So mana fixing is never going to be an issue here. And there's a lot of ways that you can take advantage of this. I mean, you're sort of casting the thing for free, right? If the thing only costs 3 mana, you're getting 3 mana. So if you're getting the 3 mana, you're essentially casting it for free, right? If I reveal a card off the top of my library, like a Crackling Doom, right? I'm revealing that card. It's got the 3 mana symbols that are required for this. And then I will add that. It's 3 mana in any combination of colors, but I can just add the white, black, and a red and then use that to cast my Crackling Doom. So I'm essentially casting it for free, right? So again, this card essentially becomes either I'm, worst case scenario, I'm drawing a card every turn, an extra card, or I'm casting a spell essentially for free. I mean, if all you put in this deck was 3 mana, right? So it sort of becomes the Niv Mizzet here. Instead of doing 2-color, you're doing 3. You could just very easily do 3-color tribal here, where all my spells are 3-color spells, like Crackling Doom and stuff like that, and I can just cast them for free, essentially. It seems pretty good, right? Yeah, this is going to be a popular commander. Again, just the scenario of I don't lose my unspent mana, which is always good. And you can also build around it, right? I mean, that's how Crewfix decks works. For the longest time, Crewfix decks were just, I'm just filling my mana pool so I can cast big things. You can do that here, except you're in 5 colors, right? And then also I get to draw an extra card every turn. So all of that alone, there's a lot of stuff you can do with it, and it's very open-ended. And then on top of that, you're just getting that free mana. Wow, this is a powerful commander. Powerful commander, and also 5 colors. Again, I don't love it. I don't love powerful 5-color commanders. We already got enough of those. Again, very iconic character. It is the 5-color Omnath that, a lot of people maybe have been waiting for because we knew it was coming, and here it is. They did the friction thing as well. I think it'll be a popular one for sure. Anyway, that is it. 5 really, really unique, interesting commanders. Some pretty powerful ones here as well. From the new set, March of the Machine, which isn't coming out for a long, long time. I don't love talking about these super early spoilers, especially after we just got a set. There was a ton to talk about, but there was some very significant things here that I think I needed to touch on. And I'm probably going to do another video as well because there's a few more commanders that I need to talk about. So let me know what you guys think of these new commanders in the comments below. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.